Today I want to go over the truth of how it was running a Minecraft server as a 14-year-old. I'm not going to disclose what servers I ran, but I'm not talking about a little server with your friends. I used to run servers that I posted on this channel that had over 700, 800 people online. And I was only 14, 15 years old at the time. I want to just give you guys a little insight on what it's like to be a server owner, because I think that a lot of people just misunderstand how, one, hard it is, and two, how stressful it is. I also want to go into just like a little bit about how Minecraft treats server owners, which is kind of questionable in the first place. But I just want to go over the very basic overview of what running a server is like, and the horrible things that happen to server owners, especially in communities where it's servers for fighting and PvPing and doing all of that. So back in around 2015, 2014, I used to run a very large faction server, maybe 2016 also, and it's an extremely stressful thing. I didn't even know how to do my taxes, let alone run a business. And that's essentially what it is. People give a lot of flack for servers charging for items or ranks or whatever. But they do it because it's actually extremely expensive to run a server. Hosting a server, not very expensive. These days is a lot cheaper than those days. You can get a lot better hardware for the price, but back then you'd probably pay around $150 a month just for the server, if you're running a server with a decent player count. Then you have to worry about DDoS attacks and people destroying what you've built, and that's a denial of service where they take your server offline, so you have to pay for protection and know how to route everything properly. And you're looking at another, back then, around $300 a month for the size server I had, maybe $400. My server fell victim to the same ransom that Hypixel did, because I was a target at the time, and we got DDoS attacked over and over and over again, to the point where my service provider actually dropped us and I lost the entire server. It got so bad that the developer I was working with at the time was around 17, 18, and he was paid. His name was Liam, and I haven't talked to him since those days. It's actually kind of crazy. Maybe I'll try and get in touch, see if he's still around. But it was so bad at that time that he just completely disappeared. It was so heartbreaking to have a server with 400 or 500 people online to literally being obliterated by a service provider because we were a risk to their company. I still had the files, but I had grown a name for myself, and the time it would take to reopen after just advertising and paying thousands of dollars from previous release to try and advertise the new one to be taken offline, it pretty much killed all momentum. I made it extremely disheartening to create a server. And the worst part about it is that many of these people that were creating these attacks were other server owners at the time. They were trying to get rid of the competition, force you to sell your server to them for X amount of money, or force your server to be destroyed so people would go to theirs. It's just something so crazy that the amount of stress trying to balance game types and features and bugs and manage the server and staff and everything I was trying to do, it got so bad that I was spending so much time on there, I wasn't even paying attention in school at all, and really just trying to make everything work. I learned basic Java coding, scripting, HTML, doing anything I could to create the features from out of my own ability rather than paying. It's just something I wanted to talk about. It's just how expensive it can be. You know, not to dishearten anybody, but basically every Minecraft YouTuber that's out there that has a server really isn't their server. They don't own anything in that server. They're just partnered with somebody else like how I was. And they just, if they're big enough, then usually they'll be like, oh, you can claim this server and you get X amount of profit share. Usually like 60%, to be honest with you, if it's really big. Maybe even 70. If it's a smaller mid-range, you know, for example, Preston Plays, I'm sure he had a server, I can't remember what it's called. He doesn't own that server, he didn't create it. It was somebody like me who created the entire server, came to him with a proposition, and they came up with an agreed upon term, which is completely fine. You know, Preston's a figure in the community, and he's going to bring the players while somebody else manages everything and creates everything. That's really the best way of doing it anyways. Some people get paid to do 5-6 episode series on YouTube to bring players. You could pay $1,000 a video depending on the person, $5,000 a video. Some people get paid $25,000 a video. I've seen the invoices, and that's what people will pay because that's how much a Minecraft server can pull in with the right person making the videos. It's sounds great on paper, but if you're the server owner, you spend so much money on advertising and so much more. For example, those websites where you can look up Minecraft servers, those ones that are at the top on those lists, they bid for those spots, and the bids are blind. And I mean, you can't see what other people bid. So the highest bidder each month is the one that gets it, and you'll only be able to see this if you're a verified server owner. Sometimes I remember back in the day, those bids for them would be $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 just for their name to be on the front of the page for a month. Sometimes someone would bid like 10 grand to be on the server for a month, the #1 spot. And the next bid was only like 3,000, so they overbid $7,000 to be on the front. It's extremely hard, near impossible to compete in the server community now, because if you want to make custom features, you're going to have to pay a developer. And you're just going to need, I think, to even start a server these days to have any chance, like at least $5,000 up front. And that's to build a website, to build the plugin base, possibly artwork. You can do it cheaper, but if you want it to look unique, I think that's probably around what you would need to pay. That's for a few custom features as well, developed, smaller ones. And then nobody's going to play it unless you have a YouTuber or somebody to show it off. You could have the best game mode in the whole world, but if you don't pay someone to come and do a video, then nobody's ever going to know it exists. Can I kill these turtles? I mean, it seems fucked up, but I think they deserve it. Anyways, it's just such a crazy thing that people don't understand. I remember, even though when I had my server, one of them made like, I made on one release like 20,000 for 3 months. I spent, shit, I want to say like 8,000 or 9,000 on the server. Then you have to think taxes. I can write off the 8,000 or 9,000. I was doing taxes at like 15. It's so crazy. You can write off all the purchases up to a limit, I believe. I can't remember anymore, but I was able to write a lot of it off. And then obviously the time I spent I don't even think I probably made $15 an hour with the amount of time I spent. Probably less. And then all the extra money I made really just had to go into advertising for the next season. But I did decide to cut my losses back then and just sell the server because I didn't know what to do. My developer completely disappeared off the face of the planet. Messaged me 2 months later saying it was just too much stress for him. You know, things the way that they happened. I don't even know what this building is. Is this like a shipwreck? I have no clue. I don't know, I just wanted to come talk about what it was like owning a server back then, and how I don't know how people could complain about ranks. Like, even if a server sold a $500 rank, I mean, nobody's really buying it, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, you'll have a couple people maybe buy it. I think 2,000 or 3,000 of my donations came from one person on my season, and it's like, someone has to keep the server afloat. Like, the bare minimum, I think, to even run a server now would be like $220, $230 a month. And that's the bare minimum with no custom features. And then you have to think of all the time you spend trying to trust staff. Like, if you want to manage it all yourself, it's just stressful.